Hello, listeners, and welcome back to the Purposeful Marketing Podcast. Sorry, James and Mary, I stole your thunder there, as you two have been rocking it and killing it the last 2 months, as I've been gone, learning to be a dad, and now I know nothing about marketing. So today, I really want to spend some time talking about that. Over the last 2 months, there's been a lot of changes. There's been a lot of trends, a lot of shiny new objects. I'll name some in a minute. I want to use that to really frame, does that matter, right? Things will change in marketing, but should we be concerned about the change or more interested in the constant? The things that we should be doing and always doing. Those are kind of what I really want to pick apart today. So again, if you're a new listener to the Purposeful Marketing Podcast, Aaron, Mary, and James are here. We have 3 different perspectives on most questions. But really what we want to do is have the conversations that we have every single day with you. And within those conversations, we're going to pull out some truth. We're going to deconstruct them, get some insight, maybe some new ideas. Maybe we'll go down a rabbit hole. Maybe we'll talk about Pink Floyd. I don't know. That's the beauty of the Purposeful Marketing Podcast. So thank you for being a listener. All right, so I'm just going to rattle some things off for our team here that happened while I was gone. And it's like, wow. So Google Analytics, dead. Universal Analytics. Now we have GA4. One that we may spend some time talking about, which I think is interesting, is kind of like there's some pushback to like the AI tools. And more so, people are just upset with how saturated they are and they're available on every platform. And you're like, how does this help me do marketing? Let's see. Twitter's now X. That's its own beast there. And along with that, there's a new social media app called Threads. And really, I want to just kind of name a few off because the question is, these are all changes. These are all trends. These are all shiny objects. Does that matter to us? Mary, you had a great post about being boring with your marketing. And maybe that's a great place for us to start. And then we can kind of take it different places.
Yeah, that sounds awesome. So my post today was basically like my marketing strategy at My Customers is really boring. It's focused on the fundamentals first. So focusing on a customer segment, doing positioning and research, creating content, distributing content, and analyzing results. So we've talked like a lot, like when James and I talked while you were gone, Aaron, about like what my first 90-ish days looked like. It was a lot of building the foundation. But so now my weeks are kind of starting to like form this circle. So it's like I create content, I distribute content, I analyze the results. I create content, I distribute content, I analyze the results. So it's boring, but it works. So I'm not getting distracted with a lot of the, some of the shiny objects you mentioned. They're just not relevant to my marketing strategy. So I kind of have to put the blinders on and say, okay, here's where I need to focus. Here's where I need to spend time. That could change definitely, but I think as I'm building up a marketing engine, I just have to prove the foundation first.
Yeah, and I think the foundation matters, and that's the most interesting thing to me. Is kind of what I was thinking about is as these new things happen, that shouldn't distract me. You use the word distraction, Mary. I wrote it down. Doesn't distract me from wanting to talk to my customers, right? If anything, great. You go use those AI tools. You come up with your Twitter strategy and Thread strategy. I'm going to take the time again to connect with my customers and interview them, right? It's still a sticking point for most of the people I work with. I don't know, James, if Gorilla 76 we've all solved this, but just to kind of give you a question, James, just to kind of cue you up a little bit. So like all these new things happen, right? Like, does that change your content strategy? Does that change the way you work or what you care about?
I don't think any of it changes what I care about. I have to say, I'm just so shocked that that pushback is like forming about to AI, and oh my gosh, like I never could have predicted that people would be a little bit unsatisfied with the integration of AI into every tool. I think that like the same sentiment kind of carries across every potential new thing. Like when you step back and think about what you care about, you get skeptical of all that stuff. I do think, though, I guess your first question was like, should we care about any of this stuff? And it's like, well, I don't know. Like hindsight is going to be 20/20 in terms of what exactly we should have cared about. But I think that, like, so long as if I'm interested in threads, um, so long as I approach it with like a methodology grounded in, what my customers want, um, grounded in the fact that I know that my customers are there, that would be a good starting place. Um, then I think that you end up just using fundamentals in a new place. Like, there's an amount that there is absolutely nothing new about threads. I guess the only thing new about threads is there's a Twitter that doesn't yet, it probably will by the time this episode drops, but doesn't yet have like paid ads, unless it already does and I'm just behind. I mean, so like, I guess that's new, but how new is it really? Um, I think that it's the same thing as AI. AI, a lot of the AI integration that we see now or is advertised as part of people's products was already there. Like, AI was already doing a lot of the stuff that it does now. Um, Obviously predictive text and predictive, like, generative image stuff, like, has made huge leaps. But like, okay, now you're integrating into X platform. If you didn't have AI in your platform before, what was going on? What was the software even doing? I took it for granted that you were using AI. So I mean, my people's fridges have been using AI. If Sears is selling AI in appliances, then it's really not that new. Um, so I think that, like, what really ends up mattering for me is, can I maintain like an understanding of fundamentally what matters to me and my audience, um, and just continue to act with that in mind. Um, then I can be open minded about new things without just like reaching out, like the Turkish ice cream guy is like holding something for me and I keep reaching out and just getting cone or just getting napkin. Um, like, I can just do the right things, or do my best at doing the right things.
I love that explanation, James. And what it reminds me of is, I'm just going to plug an episode because I was looking at earlier today, is the one we did with Blake Strozik, the founder of Bold Media, and just really talking about like these fundamentals and why we should return to them. I think that's essentially what's resonating with me in my mind is, there's just going to be all these crazy things that happen all the time in the marketing world, right? But if we take a step back, we look at our go-to marketing strategy. Are we doing those fundamental things that we care about, our customers care about? Because if we are, we're probably going to reach our goals, right? But if we're not, that's where we're getting distracted by these shiny objects. Or we think all of a sudden, oh man, I got to implement this AI software in my workflow. That's going to solve what my customers care about. I don't believe it. I don't think any of these things matter. Again, that's why I love your post so much, Mary, because you're just like back to the basics. It's super boring. The first part of your post is about focus. I think if anything, that's what we all can really hone in on right now. As kind of our other notes here is, it's Q3. People are going to be looking at Q2 and Q1, understanding like, did we build enough pipeline? Is our marketing working? Right now, it's maybe an inflection point where people are looking at these shiny objects, or they're thinking about all these great new changes. Like, that's what I need. But Mary, maybe you can kind of straw man and again make the case of like, that's not what you need. Take a step back, look at your go-to marketing strategy, do these fundamentals.
Yeah, absolutely. So that like, I love what James said so much about using your customers to as your compass for how you're going to attack shiny new objects. I would argue you also need like a structure, almost like this, like a simple framework, like the scientific method. Hypothesis, how are you going to test it? How are you going to prove results? How are you going to get consistency after you prove out the hypothesis? So the same thing should be done. So, okay, Q1, Q2, you're looking at Q3 and you're like, oh, F, I don't have enough pipeline coverage to meet our goals for this year. The answer then is not, or it wouldn't be for me, and it wouldn't be for anybody I know who's a really great marketer, to attack like an ABM platform and decide we're going to throw $10,000 at this and have them generate a bunch of like quote unquote warm target leads from some software platform. No, it would be okay, let's go back. Why didn't marketing work in Q1 and Q2? Where were our gaps? Are we not targeting the right people? And then it's like, okay, but how do we solve like the pipeline and revenue problem now? So the revenue is like you look at your sales pipeline now. How can you speed up sales cycles that are already there? How can you expand current customers? So people who are already buying from you. So just like it's like almost as a marketer, you have to like not stoke, sorry, the opposite of stoke the fire, like put down the fire, like calm everyone down and say, look, this was the plan. The plan right now doesn't look like it's working. So the answer is either we need to wait longer or we need to adjust somewhere in the very boring strategy loop.
I do want to mention, Mary 8 months ago was like the break stuff person at Gorilla. Like I want to mention that I think a big factor here in how you might think about like trying something or like diving in or taking a chance might depend on like what your team looks like. So something interesting about Mary's workflow right now is that she both owns strategy and actually executes stuff. And it came up in a conversation I had with our project manager earlier today. Sometimes you can just tell when someone's talking about something, especially on LinkedIn, that they just haven't actually been in an execution role in at least 5 years. And they just kind of don't give a shit how something gets done. And someone has to do the work. Someone has to make the content. Someone has to get into the platform and pull out the data and put it somewhere that makes it meaningful for people. And when you start to chase the tales of, maybe other people's stories about how they're using AI or other people's success stories, continuing to advertise on X despite, the owner of X being like objectively terrible and like plummeting the platform. So like there's all these stories about that might like get you thinking, oh, this new thing kind of sounds like it solved a similar problem. And it's really easy to think like, oh, like we should do that. Like it's really easy to be in a strategic meeting and say this. It's a whole lot harder to have a person actually make the content, actually go into the platform and distribute it, and then actually analyze and report on the data. And it seems sometimes like people don't account for the fact that all that has to be done well. Otherwise, you've just kind of pissed away the time and resources of your team on this kind of half-baked hope that sounded really good in a strategic meeting and had no thought given towards like, how are we actually going to execute this?
Yeah, I think that's a great point, James, because I think what happens a lot in like strategic conversations is you're talking about strategy high level, but then you just start throwing out tactics. But if I just throw out tactics, maybe one will land and stick. I think maybe the solution to kind of what you're talking about again is like when you stick to the fundamentals, you're probably going to stick to your why. That's part of our show. That's why we talk about these things, right? Is it's important to us that we talk to customers, we understand their pain points, and now the tactics flow out of that, right? I think a lot of time with this shiny object syndrome is simply you're forgetting about strategy, you're seeing the hope, and now you're like creating tactics out of it. It's like your triangle's not working at all, right? It's like strategy up top, high level. Here's the things we need to achieve. Okay, now the why. Okay, now here's the tactics that my team is going to perform. So I think what's really interesting about what you're saying is it kind of hits all levels. Like it's bad for the strategy, it's bad for the tactics, it's bad for morale. It just you go down the pipe, right? And it's just terrible. Just any response to that or any thoughts to that?
Yeah, I totally agree. Like I'm reading this really cool book called The Next CMO, and it's like how you can take creativity and like operationalize it, basically. So like how you can operationalize the function of marketing. And part of it is that it's like, okay, the reason you're probably failing is you don't have like a basic goal strategy and KPIs to measure that strategy and goal by. So like that's like just thinking back to my early days, like at my first company, my big industrial company I was a part of, it's like there was no goal for marketing except like do whatever sales and product and engineering tell you to do. Like that was the goal of marketing. So if that's your goal, I mean, you can pretty easily point back to why the shiny object probably won't work. So there was a lot of like spaghetti getting thrown at the wall there when like, you know, something, oh, we need to plan a cool event. Like we should do this event with our customers. And it's really hard then to say no as the marketing manager because like your goal is to say yes. Like that's really what your goal is. Your goal is not to um, grow the food and beverage line by 10% in revenue this year. Your goal is not to help you know, the chemical team expand their market. If your goal is just to say yes, you're kind of stuck in like, okay, sounds good. And then if you don't have the KPIs by which to measure it, it's like, okay, great, I can do this event. I don't know if it was successful or not. Like, I guess you tell me. Like, what does it mean to get registrants, attendees, feedback afterwards? Is like, so yeah. I think it all just goes back to exactly what you just said, Aaron. What you have to have a strategy, you have to have a why, you have to have a goal. Otherwise, you're just doing stuff to do stuff.
You know, I think every marketer has experienced this. It's like you either had control over the goal because, like you said, no one gave you a goal, or you have no control over the goal at all and it's unrealistic. What I think you can own, because sometimes you can't own that, is you can own the storytelling. And I think what we've been doing is, you know, we put quarterly business reviews for our clients and our profile here is, again, what worked this quarter and what didn't. I think that's where marketers can come in and do what we're talking about here is like take a step back. It's all these internal stakeholders and external stakeholders. You've been on LinkedIn looking at AI content, talking to me about that, but let's take a step back. Let's look at our fundamentals. Maybe it looks bad. I think that's something that we've talked about in this show, but it's important too. Is like, it's okay if the data looks bad, but what we need to do is own the story, help people understand where were we going, and then where do we need to go next. I think that's kind of what will get you out of this shiny object syndrome as well, because I know even just being gone for 2 months and then looking at these QBRs, I'm like, I don't understand the story at all. Like, what is the story we need to tell? I think, again, with kind of some of these other points we put, like Q3 is distraction time. Everyone is interested in saving. You need to do more with less. Okay, that's something we're all dealing with, right? But as marketers, what we can do is really own the story. Just James or Mary, any thought on that?
That's such a good one. I want to hear James's take because, like, I loved our content team because they were so good at telling like the smaller stories, like, you know, blogs, articles, but they were good at like the big overarching what's going to be our go to market narrative. So, yeah, I want to hear your take, James, on the story is all that matters.
I don't know. I tend to think like, you know, the story is a lot better when the data is good.
Sure.
I I think it is important for like a business to know, like, if you're the Los Angeles Lakers, it's a binary. Success in a season is binary. You either win the title or you don't. Like, you went and got LeBron. It's title or nothing. Like, it's binary success. I can't think of a business that operates in that way. Like, and the business of the Lakers doesn't even operate in that way. Just the team does. Like, marketing is never going to be a binary win or loss. So the story is just about contextualizing where you're at now. And no matter where you're at now, you have to be better in 6 months. Like, and there's seasonal things that affect some of the numbers. There's all this other jazz at play. But like, you're supposed to be getting better all of the time. And the story is how you put, where you're at now in perspective. And I think if you're trying to like communicate how well you're doing, I don't think you need like a massive, narrative around, how well marketing's working. But you do need to be able to like contextualize where you're at and use it to make an actual real decision about what makes sense to move forward. Because like I think the most depressing thing that Weeks you said that I think is true is like it's so easy to throw out some tactics in a strategic meeting and get everyone to buy in. And it's like when you tell everyone to take a step back, you also need to make sure not to let people get off easy by doing that. Like it's so easy to bring a to-do in, like a tactical to-do into the mix in a strategic meeting and come out on top in the meeting, like you are the doer who like has ideas and all this stuff. And you see it all the time. It's like people rush to like a tactical solution, and they don't ask enough questions about why. They don't think about how it relates to the actual journey that the company's on. And I think that's where the story is important. Is just like if we can contextualize where we're at and where we have been planning on going. Like what was our goal at the beginning of the year? It's been 6 months. We had a year-long goal. Has the year-long goal changed? Has the way we thought we were going to get there radically changed? What happened in the last 3 weeks that made us all not believe in this thing we believed in so strongly before? Like, if you're at least asking those questions and bringing the context, maybe there is a lot that's changed. But you need people to be able to like be honest about what that is and like have a real conversation about what's really important to the business if you're going to start making like huge tactical changes into how you're running marketing. It just doesn't make any sense.
What my gears are turning, I think kind of narrative may be too grand of a word, but really what I'm thinking about is like, if you don't own the narrative will own you. And with this shiny object syndrome, with these QBRs, with this reporting, with this goals, with these strategic discussions, is that stuff can overwhelm you, right? Unless you start taking control of the narrative. Now, I'll give a real example for our listeners because this is something I'm trying to brainstorm and work through right now. Is we're putting a QBR together, and things like our data looks good, right? Things are compounding to the right. Things that we track as an agency that are important to us is: are we building affinity and brand awareness? Are we getting people with the right intent in the funnel? Those things are looking good. It's going up to the right. But what we're not seeing, again, is that pipeline increase. So we can either let that narrative overwhelm us, right? Man, our pipeline's down. Q2 is really bad. Is Q3 going to be worse? Or we can start having those conversations now and really talk about what we need to talk about is let's take a step back. What's our go-to marketing strategy motion? What's important to us? Are we doing those things? One thing for us at Proofpoint, what we do a little differently is we do highly encourage people to do activation on LinkedIn, right? We do it ourselves. We run a podcast. You leave a comment on the podcast, we're going to go talk to you and we're probably going to send you a gift, right? We're going to go out and activate you. That's what we want our clients to do as well. So again, the data can look good, but pipeline can look bad. And then you can really control the narrative and say, everyone, this is what we need to do. This is the boring marketing that we talked about, that we all agreed to at the beginning. And that's not what we're doing now. Let's forget about AI. Let's forget about all these other things. All right, I'll get off my soapbox for a little bit. Just any comments or follow-ups on that one?
No, that was amazing. I mean, yeah, if stuff isn't going well, it's okay to like look at stuff, pre-trial. So you said you were having lots of high intent leads. The leads are looking good. You're having good conversations, but the pipeline isn't there. Okay, then you just like misjudged the time to pipeline. Like, big deal. You're having amazing, like you said, take a step back. We're having amazing conversations. The message is resonating. We're targeting the right people. Like, okay, so business isn't getting quoted as early as it could be. Like, if the leading indicators look good, I would say, to your point, Aaron, take a step back. It seems like the go-to-market strategy is working. So the narrative is no longer, oh my God, we need to freak out because pipeline isn't where we needed it to be. It's okay, maybe we just misjudged the time to pipeline.
Yeah, and I think this is like not easy, like for anyone.
No,
And these are
exactly.
like super hard conversations. And there's certainly a lot of other moving parts that contribute to that. And maybe there's some misses that we'll own too. But I think that's where like this conversation really led me to. It's just like, you got to control the narrative. Like all these new things, all this change doesn't matter. Let's do some boring marketing. Let's do the fundamentals that we love. Like that's going to get us, that's the why of what we're doing. So the what, how, when, and where. One other fun change I do want to mention, and we can kind of take this where we want, is just some other life events in marketing. Like the one I want to go to is like Barbie became such a phenomenon. And like their marketing budget was more than the budget they spent on the actual film. So any comments on Barbie and Oppenheimer? Like that was a huge marketing buzz over the last 2 months.
Have you tried to Google Barbie?
Oh yeah, like with Google and the sparkling thing.
Yeah. So James, I don't know if you know this, but if you Google Barbie, your screen turns pink and little sparkly dazzles appear like stars all over your screen, and it's like showtimes near you. I mean, it was like total infiltration. Like there is no way if you were a human being in the United States of America, you did not know about the Barbie movie. There's just no way. They were on Google, social media, streaming services, billboards. Like it was kind of awesome.
Yeah, I've got little to say because I'm so plugged out. Like, yes, I knew that the movie was happening. I haven't seen it yet. I'm interested in the movie, but yeah, I'm like the least connected person to like pop culture. So I didn't really have many thoughts. I just I started getting tired of like the pseudo political fake mad conversations about that kind of stuff.
The bots.
No, I understand that. I love when like the masses start talking about marketing and like there was so many comments about look at their marketing for building the actual Barbie dream home and look at this it was just a really fun phenomenon to kind of watch and track a little bit. But I think really the lesson there is like, man, if you have a lot of marketing budget and you reach the right people, you're going to build affinity. People are going to love what you're doing. People are going to be interested and want to have those conversations. All right.
So they want to have those conversations. They're like, can I book so they just call whoever the studio is. Can I book a screening of Barbie? Just like a demo screening. I just want to, can I book a trailer?
Yeah, like send me your Calendly link.
Is there a form I can fill out?
Oh, you know what? Actually, Aaron, I love about the conversation here. So I was going to say something like, oh, whatever, $bajillion marketing budget. But you know what I bet they didn't give two craps about? Attribution.
Yeah, no, I think if anything, that's absolutely it, right? And that was another one I had on my list, but we should invite Kevin on to kind of talk about the technicalities of it. But with the new iOS update that's going to come out, things like UTM tracking, all these other attribution things we've been using for the last couple of years, they're dead. They're finally dead. We've been talking about this. So that may be another conversation for another pod.
I could not be happier, Aaron Weeks, that attribution is dying.
Yeah, obsess over your customers, not over attribution, and your life will be a lot better.
So episode 59 title is going to be Attribution is Dead and Mary Keogh is popping champagne on its grave.
I'm going to grab a bottle of Voob and we're going to have an episode.
Heck yeah. With that, we may just do that. I'll kind of wrap up here. I think, again, listeners, today episode, I really wanted to just kind of have some fun with Mary and James since we haven't talked in a while. The great thing about marketing is it does change, and that's what makes it interesting. But what we really want to help you do is kind of understand the things that can make you successful, right? We want to talk about purposeful marketing for the everyday practitioner. That's you. So hopefully you can get something out of this episode and future episodes. We are taking guests. We have several guests over the last year, and it's been awesome. We'd love to take more people. It's available on Apple, Spotify, YouTube, wherever you kind of watch podcasts. We'll be there. And besides that, enjoy yourself. Don't get distracted by the shiny objects, and have a good one.
Peace.